impossible. I never thought about that. Yes, ma'am. Where you at? There. Oh, Charlie.
No.
Everybody got water?
All right.
You got what you need?
Yes, probably right.
Thank you.
You'll not.
Thank you for bringing it around.
From the corner.
Oh, very good. Oh, that was you made.
If you remind me, I'll put it back that you did.
Box 46 wants me to call after this meeting.
You're popular in my life.
You've been on that. You'll be on Good Morning America. Todd said he'd be here at 5 o'clock. Got the tape off there.
Okay. Good. What happened to him? He forgot.
Broke down.
Oh,
He's got 2 loads of asphalt.
Ah,
He's
lady.
down loads of asphalt on the truck and his pavement broke down. I said, what are you gonna do with the asphalt? He said, 25 loads of asphalt. It's soon. She's debating though. She's gonna take like that. I told her she was ready to ask you where to buy it.
I don't think I know.
I haven't gone to places. Hey, you got two?
That turns to me what to get just, you know, when I'm passing, somebody's passing lunch back and forth with.
Oh. I can't carry it because of brick.
Right.
Don't just leave you a pair here. They get going. Do what? You would.
If I break my glasses, I gotta get my these.
I've worried her before, though she's got in her hand. They look good on you.
I've got a reschedule my appointment for next week from March. Called me, so I'm gonna go, and I am so bad, because these have, I'm just like 2 places that I can see.
You'll be ready to get you serious one morning.
Rest of it's all scratch and everything.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I will have an improvement by then.
I would love to hear my thing.
I'll try not to say, Come on, Good Morning America.
That would be so cool. You know what I mean? We should call
No. No, appreciate the call.
We will call our meeting for May the 4th, 2020 to order, and we're glad that we're able to be here today, and we miss our audience, but they're over at food, and we're just thankful that we can get together. And Woody, if you please lead us in our prayer.
We'd like to. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this beautiful spring day. Dear Heavenly Father, and for all the many wonderful blessings of this life, which we know come from your bountiful hand. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you and I praise you that over the past several weeks, you, Lord, kept a hedge of protection around our families, dear Heavenly Father, and around our county. Help us, Lord, to always give you the praise, the honor, and the glory for all things, Lord. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you'd be with us through this meeting, Lord, and through decisions that we have to make, Lord. Give us the wisdom to make the right decisions for the citizens of the county. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you and praise you for all things, but especially, Lord, for Jesus, for it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's all stand and we'll ask Mr. Barry if he'll lead us in our pledge.
All right. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move right along with our agenda and we'll go to 3.2A, proclamations and awards. We're going to wait on those.
There's not any awards other than to congratulate the citizens of Aarc County. We do not have a positive COVID result as of today in our county. So I just want to thank the citizens personally, and I know you all, the board, I want to thank you all.
All right, we'll move right along to 3.2B. Our public comments, we asked that if anyone had public comment, would they email us or bring it in? And Mr. Barrier has 2 emails.
I have 3.
3.
I have 3 emails. I did not get any phone calls, but I do have 3 emails, so I will read those to you. Dear Aarc County Commissioners, as you discuss the continuing suspension of short-term rentals today, we ask that you consider the small businesses who have suffered greatly. We came to Aarc County and bought a rundown piece of property. We have put all our money and time and energy into making it a success, which is until these unreasonable restrictions hit. This is our only income using Airbnb. We provide lodging for guests to enjoy Aarc County and spend money in Aarc County. We have 3 small apartments, a total occupancy of 14, a tiny house limited of 2 guests, and 11 campsites. While we had 3 campsites operational thus far, we now have 8 more, which we were going to put into operation this spring. Campsites are limited to 2 guests per site. We do not have any large groups here. There's plenty of private space for everyone who stays here. While we might be willing to delay the marketing of the additional 8 campsites, we will not accept being prohibited to reopen our business, our 3 apartments, the tiny house, and the 3 campsites. The short-term rental suspension is ruining us. Please, we beg you to end it. No 1/3, no half occupancy restriction. McDowell and Mitchell counties have lifted their suspensions and have no occupancy restrictions. The most recent CDC reports show that the coronavirus numbers were vastly exaggerated. The new result shows only a 0.034 death rate, which is significantly lower than any yearly flu virus. The media chose to seize upon an opportunity to bring fear and control to the population according to their agenda. Increasingly, the American people see through this, and we have had enough. President Trump has had the wisdom to allow the states, governors, and mayors to control their own jurisdictions to show who they really are. Once the bulk of this is soon over, we the people will be looking back to see who the tyrants were. Don't be included in them. Not only did we not qualify for any of the stimulus loans, we have not been able to afford health insurance for 30 years. In 2019, our short-term rental business brought in a gross profit of $38,000, and we signed up for the Affordable Care Act health insurance for 2020. It is beginning to look like we will not be able to make the minimum net of $16,900 this year, and we will have to pay back the $2,800 per month premium for that time that we have had the insurance, 12 months now. How are we going to be able to do that? If you fear a large number of tourists, put a limit on motels and resorts that bring in large groups, but please stop destroying Aarc County small businesses that are bringing tourists to shop, eat, and discover Aarc County. Donna and I have spoken several times with Philip and left messages with the commissioner's office. We do not want to sit idly and watch our business go down. Thank you for hearing us out. Jeff and Donna Maurice, Creekside Chalets and Campsites. My second one is shorter. I hope the commissioners decide to keep the current virus restrictions in place during the meeting today, and that is Mr. John Patterson. Dear Avery County Commissioners, I am a seasonal resident in Avery County where I have enjoyed 51 months of beauty for the past 21 years. I and a large number of our other seasonal residents are extremely concerned about the 14-day self-quarantine restrictions you are placing on every person entering the county and from anywhere and staying on overnight. I am in a gated community in Florida which only required the quarantine for those arriving by air or from a foreign country. With around 7,000 residents since the inception of this virus, we have only had 2 confirmed cases of the COVID-19, 0 hospitalizations and 0 deaths. I plan on arriving at my summer home around May 19th. We will not be staying anywhere en route. I fail to understand what risk I pose to a full-year resident of Avery County. The real risk is that with these restrictions, folks like me will not come to their homes this summer, and the economy of your wonderful area will be even more damaged than it may need to be. I notice that all 5 of you are Republicans, which is great. You understand that this illness, like many others in the past, requires the appropriate balance between health concerns and economic well-being. In the past 2 months, there have been reported around 50 deaths in Avery County, yet none of these, even though all of them appear to be at high-risk age group, are contributed to the coronavirus. Many other areas, nearly all deaths have been classified as COVID-19, probably to garner more public funding. I applaud you for not taking this route. As I approach my decision point on whether to just skip the use of my wonderful mountain home this summer, I am hoping that you will strongly consider removing this quarantine requirement for regular summer residents such as myself. Thank you for your service and consideration. Phil Ashkettle. This is Mike. That's all I have.
All right. We thank those that sent in to speak in our public comments, and thank Mr. Barrier for reading them and
Trying to.
we'll take that on a little bit later on. 3.2C, board appointments. We have number 1, Avery County Agriculture Advisor Committee, and we have 2 applications, Jim Phillips and Mose Bradsell. And we already reviewed them. Do I hear a motion that we appoint these 2 to the Avery County Agriculture Advisory Committee?
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. 3.22, Community Child Protection Team. We have 1 person that is applied, Sydney Harris. And we had that to look over from our last meeting. Did we have any discussion?
I asked at the last meeting if there wasn't someone, an Avery County resident, that was qualified or interested in this. And I don't know this person, and I definitely am not against them. But I think these boards should be filled with local people.
Anyone else have a comment? Well,
Would it be permissible to table and try to recruit someone, an Avery County resident for the position, or is that allowable?
I mean, I think the board could choose to table it and re-advertise for applications.
Well, the thing
Or is it needed for?
she is the coordinator for OASIS.
Yeah.
In Avery County.
Is that a requirement for the position?
She works in the county, is that what you're saying?
She does work in the county, she's the coordinator for OASIS, and one of their members needs to be from OASIS.
Didn't she take Tiffany's position?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
So Tiffany made the position.
I mean, we can re-advertise.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm not against this person. I would like to see our boards filled with our people. Is that wrong?
No, I don't think it's wrong at all. But has it been, had it been advertised?
Yeah. we
Yeah,
have
she
that.
was on the film, the last meeting we had here. She was on that film. And,
How are these advertised?
In the newspaper.
One or both?
So,
let's see,
that
Cindy,
the
has
only
she been
place?
on this for 3 years? Is it
She's been with Oasis 3 years.
Oasis 3 years?
yeah, she's not been on this board.
Yeah.
Tiffany Moon was on the board
Yeah.
as the coordinator of Oasis. And so when Tiffany left, then she became the coordinator, and so she was taking Tiffany's place on the board.
Well, I agree with Woody's concept that we need to try to get as many local folks as we can. I do think in this situation, because of her position that she holds, that she may be the exception to that if we chose to go because of the position she holds and the relationship it has with this child protection team through Oasis.
Go ahead, make a motion, I'll second.
Kind of borderline.
Is before we do that, does someone from Oasis, is that a requirement to sit on that board, or is that just something we've always done?
Let me look at their bylaws.
Okay. I mean, I don't have a problem, but I just want to know.
Sorry, folks.
Let's go here. Let's leave McCray.
If you want to table that and let me get a copy of their bylaws, and then we'll.
I move to table.
all right. We'll table that to our next meeting, and Cindy can get back with us before we have our meeting. What did you
Rudy,
say?
will you second it?
Yes. So,
All in favor?
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. 3.23, Avery County Economic Development Committee. We have one person that has filled out an application, Jerry Moody. And I think we all know Jerry, and we had one to resign, Mr. Fowler, and Jerry applied to take over his term.
I move to appoint Jerry.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll move right along to 3.3A, our 2020 solid waste disposable agreement. And you want to tell us about that?
Yes, ma'am. You have in front of you the agreement with the city of Bristol, Virginia on our waste disposal, starting in July 2020. And Michelle has looked it over, and this is the one that we talked about in our board workshop, and Aarc is behind it also. So we just need approval to, for the chairman to sign the, on behalf of the county.
And I have spoken with Aarc. I have one proposed change in this. It's removing some language that it's governed by the state of Virginia. That language is fine at the end of the document, but there are two other places in it to indicate that it would just be general language and not specific to Virginia. And I've spoken with Aarc, and he thinks those terms would be agreeable. So I would recommend that it be adopted or approved with those two changes, and as I'll indicate to solid waste director.
The only question I have is Miss Michelle.
Yes,
And this is a
It's too much.
5-year agreement plan.
Yes.
All right. Do I hear any other discussion? If not, do I hear that we approve the solid waste disposal agreement
We approve it
With the changes,
with the change.
with the changes
Michelle
of the
mentioned.
language?
I say, will they agree to the change?
I was just checking with the clerk to verify with her that the legislation that was signed by the governor today indicated that remote meetings, that all votes should be, the polling should be indicated in the minutes. And I was just checking with the clerk to make sure that that was being indicated. So it wasn't related to that specifically.
All right. It's been put as to approved and Woody seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. 3.3B, construction contract between Granco and the county of Aarc.
That was a little lengthy.
Yeah.
It is a little lengthy. Michelle has reviewed this.
I will say that it is approved as to form, as to the terms. That is entirely up to the board on what terms that they desire to accept on the contract.
Say that again.
The form of the contract's approved. I mean, it's up, the bid amount, the amount of the bid, the specifications and everything, that's a board decision.
And I believe we've talked about the bid at our construction meeting, and Granco is a company that built the offices, so they're going to build the community room. So management's just asking for the authorization for the chairman to sign the bond and the document.
And all the alternates, the bid alternates are options, right? They can be exercised at our discretion. Is that?
I think there were 2 or 3 alternates.
Yes. And those can be just selected at our discretion as we go forward.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought they were included.
They're bid separately. They had the base bid, which was the base amount, and then there were the alternates that were, I mean, they were in the bid amount, but they are
With wood ceiling
they're
panels and things like that.
indicated separate, yes.
But that's.
So we're good at our bid price on everything.
Okay, that was my question.
Right, Michelle?
Yeah, that was my,
Yes,
yes, that
yes.
was my understanding that that was the bid the county wanted to accept. Or
So
was
we're
going
gonna
to
get what we wanted. All of the elements for the
Yes.
price mentioned.
Yes,
Okay,
1.3.
yes.
yes.
All right.
Are there any known, I'm trying to be careful, any known obstacles or issues with the bidding process that would come into play here through other parties?
Very good, correct.
The only issues I'm aware of are the issues that the board is already aware of.
Which has,
What she said.
which is still, not reached a total, not totally been resolved.
I haven't heard anything new since the board was last advised. of
Okay,
anything.
so we're still working under that.
I haven't heard anything,
Okay.
one way or the other.
That's what I was going to say. There's no new,
No,
input.
I have not heard it.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. I haven't heard anything.
That's good. That's enough for me.
I think that with the full context of that situation, I'm comfortable proceeding forward. But I'll speak for myself. I have but one, but move to adopt or approve.
Approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll get that signed and taken care of. 3.3 C, our tax administrator report, Mr. Bruce Daniels.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Afternoon.
Sir. Hope all is well with everyone. For your approval, the monthly collections for the month of April stand at $203,244.03.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 That brings us approximately to about 97.2, 97.25% for 2019 taxes. And that's before back taxes hit the paper this week. So I'm happy. I hope
I'm
Mr.
happy.
Mayor's happy. I hope everyone's happy with that figure. I think it represents a pretty decent place to be for us for right now. Along with collections, Mr. Young sometimes comes to the necessity of a couple of releases. In this particular instance, it's $4, simply because that was the $2 advertising fee that got placed on before they cleared. They had been paid the day before online. It takes 2 to 3 days for that to process through. So I went ahead and released the advertising fee because they were paid beforehand and they were given confirmation they were paid before they were advertised. But mass file goes on, and here we are. So for your approval.
Regretfully move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
And as far as the sales for April, you can see obviously the unusual times that we find ourselves in as represented by the format that this meeting is taking. It has taken a toll on our sales numbers for April. We are actually down for the first time in probably 16 months as far as the total number of sales year to date. We only had 41 sales for April of this year compared to 52 sales last year. Sales prices are still strong. This hasn't seemed to impact them as of yet. So that is a good thing. As you can see, Sugar Mountain and condominiums are certainly active. This is just a small representation of the number of sales that were actually in Sugar Mountain at this particular time. I think I had 15 or 16 just in the Sugar Mountain community alone. As far as sales to choose from, I won't go into them individually in depth, but you can see that the ratio is 94% for this year compared to 85% for last year. So.
Were these sales in what month? In the month of March?
These were month of April.
Month of April? Understood.
1 minute. That's correct. It's impressive, isn't it?
Very.
So, but this is the fewest number of sales that we've had in a month in quite a while. So, any other questions or comments or concerns that I can address or answer for you today?
We appreciate you.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We'll move right along with our county manager updates. I think he has several to tell us about.
Just a few. So, first broadband, let's talk about something positive today. The ARC Pre-Application is in your agenda packet for you all to look at this month. So I want to again thank Michelle Ball, High Country Council of Governments, for their help with that. And if you do not have reliable internet service, but you do have reliable Carolina West service with your phone, not that I'm plugging Carolina West, but they are now testing in our area for broadband capabilities through Carolina West. So I'm encouraging folks that are in these dead spots. I'm actually having someone come to our house and look at, see what we can do for my personal home. So that is in a testing phase. They don't want to put it out there full until they know that it's going to be a reliable, good product, affordable product for the community. So that's some good news on broadband for those with limited service. With the COVID-19, of course, we'll discuss more of this during the county attorney's report when we talk about our declaration, but I just want to remind everyone that our health department is doing testing on this Thursday from 9 to 1. Our goal, my personal goal, is to see 200 people get tested. Their goal is a lot higher than that. The governor, of course, and says, you know, they want to get the number of people tested at. So this is for people, if you have no symptoms, if you just want to know. It's a simple swab test. It's not as invasive as some people have said. So that's got a little bit better. And at our morning meeting this morning, they said as soon as the FDA, you know, approves that blood test, that people want to have that, they will also be administering that test. So if you'd like to come and get tested, it'll be from 9 until the line goes down, but they've got 9 to 1 advertised with our health department. You'll start get in the line at the library and come down the one-way street. So then we'll send you through the tent. So looking forward to that. Want to brag on downstairs Department of Social Services, Barbara and her bunch, but just to give you an idea of what's going on because of COVID. Food stamp units. Last year, there were 35 applications taken in the month of April. This year, there's 114. And same staff has worked all and done all that progress. And also just a word out to the public that if your child does get the free and reduced lunch, there is help for you through the summer with that. And also social services will take care of that. So, you know, be in touch by phone or email with your social services, but just wanted to brag on them a little bit. Manna Food Bank will be back next Thursday, the 14th, over at the pool parking lot from 12 o'clock until the food runs out. So that line, thank the Sheriff's Department again, the school system, and Robbie and those at Parks and Rec for all they do to make sure the Manna Food Bank is going smoothly. And our community building, we're trying to push some dirt. Of course, it's really wet, so we've run into some issues with that, and we'll discuss that a little more this week, but hope to be on track, and we'll get this application and all that signed to them, and work can begin on that. The Community Development Block Grant, we did open the bids for that on Friday. Wilkesboro was the lowest bidder on the 4 homes that we were going to replace. So they will be contacted that we have sent that to them. With double wides, yes, with double wides. So 4 of those homes will get replaced, and then we will start working on the rehabs that are in order. Our census numbers are really, really low. And I just got off the phone with them again today, the person that's in charge of every county. So I encourage the citizens to please call the census, and it's 1-844-330-2020. With your all's permission, I'd like to do a reverse call through 911 just to remind people. Mr. Aldridge, I did get into a discussion today with the Census Bureau that all my summer homes that are empty cannot respond to the census because they live in other places. I still believe that's why our census numbers stay low in every county. It's because of our summer residents. Just because I have a 911 address and you want me to respond, I do not have a PO box here in every county. So therefore, I'm not going to respond. So sorry, I'm convinced that that's why our percentage is at 26% for the entire county. And then Yeah, exactly.
They had to have somewhere to start.
And then I know that we had discussed at our budget workshop about the peak apartments. Danny Ellis in the apartment at over at the here in Newland, 80 apartments. And Mr. Young had asked me today, and if we would like to just do a letter of support to them to go along with his application. And so I'm just going to open that up for discussion.
If we, question been asked about the loan amortization and repay. That was quick as the way to Thursday. I made a phone call and sometime over the weekend, this outfit in Greensboro, CPAs did that, and I just wanted to bring it. I got lunchtime today. I wanted to bring it so you could see. But that, and that's with the letter, but it, I think would behoove us, and I know it would help Danny Ellis and his business partners, if we, as a county, would write or ask Ms. Michelle to write a letter of support for this project and stating that financial, that thought that it would go a long ways. So I would like to ask the board if we would to approve for Ms. Michelle to write a letter in support of it.
I don't have no problem with that whatsoever, because as we discussed, the concept of it is great. I mean, the idea and what it would bring, I don't think there's any question about that should it come to fruition. And I hate that it's kind of a weak measure of support to say that we support it, but we're not able to finance it. I believe that's all that we can do at this point. But yes, I would have no problem.
They think given the circumstances with the coronavirus, that would still help.
And stating that there is the need and that we recognize that and all that would play into it, I think that would be appropriate.
I think it's a great thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Mr. Michelle?
I think so.
Michelle, can we do that by, you write the letter and then the chairman sign? Would that be?
Or I think the manager could sign.
Right. We need that in a motion?
Just a question, would it be more, would it carry more weight if we all signed it, or is that something?
Probably.
I probably, maybe all commissioners.
That would be fine. I mean, if that's what the board wants to do.
But you have Danny Ellis's email address. I know you haven't had Valerie, but it would probably, the application is due the 14th. So he needs it before then.
I think we can leave that out before then, don't you?
I think so. No problem.
And I thank you.
This would be, some people have not heard about the project, and they started asking about it and calling about it. And it's 80 apartments,
80 units,
20 units will be for low income,
16.
16, 16 will be for low income. And it's supposed to be built on the property where the mill at one time had. And I think it is a good project. It just came up really at a hard time because tomorrow the report will come out, how many people is unemployed in North Carolina. So we'll keep this in our mind, and the letter, we hope that will help them. And
One thing too that will help immensely is when the application goes in, as soon as it goes in, if the board, probably as individuals, would contact Warren Daniel, Josh Dobson, and Miss Deanna Ballard, because Deanna will still fight for us. And it makes a difference if you contact them, because then they will see that we are truly behind it. They will go to the finance seers and handle tax credits to, lack of better terms, to put pressure on them so that they can get the tax credits to build. And that's what it's all about.
all right, did we have a motion on this? And anybody made a
You
motion?
need a motion? I
We
make a
need-
motion, we get Miss Michelle to write a letter
All
for
right,
support.
do I hear a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay, and right now, I will just let the board know, I've double checked the legislation that was passed today, and all votes are supposed to be by roll call indication today, so we need to take individual votes. And under my report, I'll ask the board to amend the agenda, and we'll go back and clean up the rest of the earlier. So if we will, for the record, if we can get each commissioner to indicate their vote, I say Woodhall Young Jr., your vote is
Aye.
Blake Vance,
Aye.
Martha Hicks,
Aye.
Tim Phillips,
Aye.
Dennis Aldridge.
Aye.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we'll have to do that with each item.
Each item, all right?
Yes.
You want to do that now?
Each item that requires a vote, we'll have to
Okay.
do that.
Did that take care of everything previous?
No, I'll clean that up under my report.
All right, we'll go back and vote for the advisory committee.
If the board, does the board want to amend the agenda at this time to go back and
All right,
do that? Is there a motion to do
So
that?
moved.
Second.
Okay, and again, if I can ask everyone to vote for that, Woodhull Young Jr.,
Aye.
Blake Vance,
Aye.
Martha Hicks,
aye,
Tim Phillips,
Aye.
Dennis Aldridge.
Aye.
And what I will ask the board is, previously the board had voted for these things and all votes were unanimous, and I will ask each commissioner to affirm their vote at this time. So we had the board appointment to the Economic Development Commission, the tabling of the appointment of the position, the Community Child Protective Team, the Solid Waste Disposal Agreement, the Granco Construction Contract, and the monthly tax administrator reports. Ask each commissioner, Woodhull Young Jr., was your vote on each one of those matters aye?
Yes.
And Blake Vance, was your vote on each one of those matters aye? Each one of those matters aye.
yes,
Matters aye.
Yes.
And Dennis Aldridge, was your vote on each one of those matters aye?
Yes.
I think that cleaned up everything.
all right. All right, we'll move right along to 3.4B, our finance officer report, and we want to introduce Miss Ashley
Get off the. Yeah, so I'm killing time. Charlie's we found. Yeah. 70-something.
Ready?
Man.
We will bring our meeting back from the recess for a few minutes. And I think we've got technology fixed, right? All right. We'll move right along with our county attorney report, Michelle Ford, 3.46.
The first thing that I have for the board to consider is a resolution regarding some additions to the personnel policy related to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And the board looked at these last month. We just kind of got some initial information on it, and Ashley had done a memo to the employees on it. But this is to formally make those provisions part of the personnel policy. And those provisions were just valid through December 31st of 2020 at this time. So I just asked the board for a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Would these automatically drop off, or would we have to take action on them at the end of that period?
The board would not have to take action because they're just valid through the end of the year. It may be that the federal government either extends that or makes different provisions for 2021.
At which time we would need to readjust again,
Correct.
because the new state that goes through March 31st.
December
Or
31st.
December 31st.
Yes, December 31st. Yes.
Small brain.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Young, how did you
Put the
vote?
whole room, Junior, aye.
Wait, that's all.
Martha Hicks, aye.
Big dog, aye.
Dennis Aldridge, aye.
And the other item that's under my report is the local state of emergency for the county. And I'm sure as the board's aware, the governor's order, unless it's extended, is set to expire on May the 8th. Phased in implementation with that after that. And so I guess I just wanted to see if the board had any thoughts at this point on whether the board wanted to extend the local state of emergency and what provisions the board might want in that, specifically the two additional provisions that we have locally, which is the 14-day quarantine provision and the short-term rental provisions.
I would personally like to see the short-term rental. Done something with it. Either open it up or something. I just think it's time to get some of these people back in their business.
What was think about opening 50% of the short-term rentals for 3 weeks? Because 3 weeks is going to coincide with the governor's order, with get through the end of his first session. And that's give them a week to rent them and 2 weeks to, we can see what happens.
Well, I would say probably they've got them rented. I mean, I would say they've got probably reservations made. They're just holding them off.
But I say 50%, simply because of, just like the letter that we got, and I didn't know that Phil had a letter for public comment. A lot of these people who've got rental places don't have enough for 25% to help them.
No.
And I also think that we ought to open the campgrounds up, because the campgrounds, people are outside anyway, they're not going to be.
Or in their private.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And while I'm talking, I think we should lift the 14-day quarantine. And I'll tell you why, because I don't think you can police it anyway.
I think you can't either.
That's just my suggestion, 50% of rentals, lift the quarantine and open up all campgrounds.
I'm more willing to and I'm gonna hurt some of y'all's feelings if you've ever stayed in an Airbnb. I'm a little more willing to look at increased capacity for motels too, because they do have a health inspection. They do have health procedures in place. Anybody that's got a spare room can have an Airbnb with absolutely no oversight. So I think there's better protocols in place when you're looking at hotels, motels, that sort of thing too. So I think maybe we include them with the campgrounds and.
I think that's a good idea.
Because they do have health department standards in place. They are inspected. They do have to be tested. They have surprise inspections, things like that, whereas Airbnbs do not.
That's kind of where I was going, just thinking short-term rentals, I just think it's time to let these people get back to some kind of normalcy. And if it's 50%, if it's 100%, I'm just, ready to go with that.
I think everyone, we're all sort of on the same boat. I think it's better, the mechanism is the issue. And because we have tried to be cautious, we tried to observe protocols as they've been sent down and tried to be proactive in reaching out for this. And so I think that same measure of concern that we've shown should be here as well as we go on the other side of it. And what we do, just like the public comment that we heard earlier, I thought that was really interesting. You have totally both sides of the issue. And if any public forum or public comment or you talking to folks, you're going to have those two sides of the issue. So I think what we do is, or hopefully trying to do, and I think what we have done is try to reach that balance of public safety and awareness of the economic impact on people's lives and their daily existence. So we have tried to protect both of those as much as possible, given this unique situation. I agree with Mr. Young. I think we moved forward with that, sort of following the governor, and I hate to make that statement, but I'm going to, in a bit of a phased in project or process with using maybe a 50% threshold. We had already discussed other percentages, but I think 50 would be workable, 50% threshold for a fixed period to see how that's going to come. And because, and the reason I'm saying that with the understanding that if something really bizarre happens, then we can pull back from that, is that this testing that we talked about earlier over here, we need to be aware, and the public needs to be aware, that if we open up, if we relax some of these restrictions, and the fact that Avery County has no reported cases does not mean that Avery County doesn't have people that have the virus in the county. I think it'd be naive to assume that. So if we go through with this testing and we do go in 400, 200, whatever number of tests, and as time goes on, there's going to be positive results, is what I'm saying. So, and I don't, and what I think we need to be cautious about is in making everyone aware that in any increase in the number of reported cases may not be directly related to the restrictions, doing away with some restrictions. It's not a one-to-one relationship. It just so happens time-wise, the testing is complete. Anytime you have more testing, you're going to have more cases. And I think there's a huge number of folks out here in every walk of life who have been exposed to this and may possess the virus. I think that number is going to be great. The more that number goes up, in actuality, it shows us the safety protocols in place are good, because the infection rate, the reason we've not had any reported cases, we've not had anyone serious enough to be in the hospital. And
That's what I was going to get at too. you were talking about, you said it's something bizarre, but what constitutes bizarre? Is it because 2 or 3 people get it? Or is it because you hospitalized 70? You know,
That's what I think.
somewhere you've got to find that happy medium that you don't panic over 3 cases and you jump back into this whole short-term rental, shut everything down.
That's what I was trying to kind of set the groundwork for, of saying, because I think we need to be ready to deal with the fact when there is a reported case that we're not going to use this relaxation restrictions as that's what caused that. Because I don't think it's going to.
Well,
And Diane Creek with the health department, I think has some guidelines in mind of what constitutes a second wave, or however you want to put that, or a breakout. And it is not an isolated case or 2 or 3 or a dozen. I'm not sure what that, in our population, what that number is, but I think we need to, as we go forward and we make these relaxations, need to realize that when those positive tests come, it's going to come that it's a result of this, and it's not. And I think we need to realize that we're doing what's proactive for the business, for people's lives, and we're trying to keep in mind that balance of trying to protect public safety and open up the business threshold.
And it will be said, if there's a positive case that comes out, it will be said.
But I spoke with Diane Creek, I had contact with her several times over the weekend, spoke to her at length this morning. And she is in agreement. I just said, Diane, here's what I'm thinking, and what is my personal opinion, just what I told you, all 50%, do away 14-day quarantine and open the short-term rentals back up to 50%. And Diane told me that she thought that was a good idea, that we had to get people back to work, which was somewhat surprising, really, coming from her. But we also need to stress social distancing and wearing masks in public
And washing your hands.
and washing your hands. But we also, I think, need to stress that if you are more highly susceptible, as a lot of us are, you can still stay home. You can still stay in.
And you can
You know,
practice the
it's your
same,
choice for what you do. No one is making you go out.
certainly you can practice the same things you're practicing right now and still go and do some things, that you can do, but you can still practice these same things we've been doing.
I mean, what
It's just
we're
a matter of choice.
proposing to do really is not going to affect the local people in what they do. Does that make sense?
And there's fear of, from that, because we've not had recorded that we kind of have this, bubble around us, and that is, I won't say a false assumption, but probably one that's not based on credible.
Well,
Science.
Diane has maintained for the last 8 weeks. There are cases out there. You just don't know where they are.
I would venture to say that 2% of the information, maybe 2% of the information that's been thrown around in the past 2 months is based on anything factual or present.
Because
Nationwide.
and while we're in this discussion, I will say, people talk about, well, science says, well, I respect science as much as the next person. I respect experts, quote, unquote, as much as the next person. But when the science is a moving target, whenever it's reevaluated, and today's absolute truth is tomorrow's, we really didn't mean that. It's hard to know what constitutes the hard science. And if we had that 100%, we would use that as the criteria for every decision we make. But we don't.
And the problem is, 2 people can look at the same set of data, even if it is hard science, and get 2 completely different conclusions from
Well,
that.
it's sad that you're sitting in a country that has the technology and the science that we have, and you can't get a straight answer for everybody. Because everybody's want is the straight truth on this, so they'll know what to do, and you can't find that. So that's what's a little problem.
But I think our move that we made today, I think it's wise to go forward with some form of relaxation of our restrictions. I'm not in favor of going 100%, simply because I think from the public health standpoint, we need to try to be as careful as we do this as we can. And this, this mechanism for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever we choose to do, I think would give us a beginning point and moving into a full relaxation.
I agree.
Well, I guess one thing, if the board continues their discussion, but if I can get some guidance from the board on exactly what you want to relax on, then I can draw something up for Ms. Martha to consider to extend the local state of emergency. So I guess the first thing, I mean, how does the board feel about eliminating the 14-day quarantine?
Fine with that.
Go ahead. I
Okay.
think
You need a motion?
No, I don't need a motion, but I just need
It's,
some guidance.
it's an unenforceable mandate that it's almost a self, and if someone's going to do that, they're going to do it regardless. So I think that could do it because they care.
Well, but and yeah, I was the first person to say unenforceable, but the sheriff's department has done
Yes.
a wonderful job in enforcing it where they knew to enforce it. And I will credit them for that because I have first-hand knowledge of it.
And also, I want to commend some of our resorts because they have been very proactive in touch with our county manager in trying to get that information to their people. So I think they need to be commended as well. But I think that may be something we want to do.
If I make a comment on that, I had a phone call today from a resort who is not opening their facility until July the 5th, no matter what we do.
That's their choice.
So, right, that's their choice, but that's just how proactive they're being about helping us with this cause. So,
I don't know if this is time or place or if it should even be said, but our county manager has had phone calls from businesses, if I'm wrong, correct me, thanking him for the 14-day quarantine, because when people would come to their summer homes and call for services, that protected their employees.
correct.
Right?
Yes, it is.
But they can still do that through policies of their own company.
Right.
So I guess the next thing to look at would be the short-term rentals. I guess the easiest one to look at, because it's a bit different from the other, is how does the board feel about campgrounds? Because those are largely outdoors. And
I say
people are,
I say open them up complete.
and then as far as hotels and motels, does the board feel that there needs to be any type of unit restrictions or anything on those, or to open those?
I really, in terms of proximity and the number of people involved, I think those, I would think we phase that in at a 50% rate for a fixed period of time.
I feel better about them than I do Airbnbs just because they do have
I
standardized.
agree with Mr. Aldridge, I'd say 50%. And I think 3 weeks would work because it coincides with the governor's proposals, does it not?
He says 2 to 3 weeks after phase 1.
I think he's a little flexible.
He's being very flexible. But we can be
He
flexible.
ain't got his talking points from the DNC yet. That's exactly what it is.
Well, that one thing that's going to determine that is when do we plan on making this active?
Well, that's what I was going to ask if I may. So it's all what we are putting in place tonight, we're good through the 8th of May. When the governor
Well, I-
supposedly goes
Well,
to
I
phase
think what
one.
the board is looking at is having the discussion here, and then I can draw up an extension of the local state of emergency for the board to consider making effective May the 8th, whenever the governor's existing orders set to roll. And then some of the things that the board would be looking in that is lifting the 14-day quarantine, looking at a type of phased or relaxed opening of the short-term rentals, looking at the campgrounds opening up completely immediately, hotels and motels, looking at those being opened up with maybe 50% units initially, and then at maybe the 1st of June or some period after that, a few weeks after that, looking at those going ahead and opening up completely. And then for the other short-term rentals, I guess that's where we were at for the board discussion on what the board feels, if those should remain, those should be at 50% of their units, or if those should stay closed for another 3 weeks or so until the rest of, till the units of the hotels and motels open up further. So I guess that's where we were at discussing.
It's hard to make a distinction between the hotel motel and the short term. Blake's point is very well taken in terms of oversight and on those. But you have a lot of these places which may have just two or three, like this letter that was coming in from the folks earlier, talking 2 to 3 units. It's hard to have a height of 3, you know. If we're looking at protection, if we're looking at population, in terms of the number of people who are becoming in contact, I don't know the proximity of these one to the other, how many people are going to be bringing in, if it's one house, one separate building, you know, there's so many variables there. It's in a motel, hotel situation, you know, you've got X number of rooms.
Something that's regulated.
You're right.
I mean, that may be one way the board wants to look at tying it, is something that's regulated versus something that's unregulated.
I feel better about things that are regulated with some oversight. That's just me. Maybe that's having worked in the hospitality industry for so long, but you make a difference if you know the health inspector can pop by any moment. There's a difference than if it, you know, you're renting through the website.
But you don't want to hurt those small ones are the ones that are hurting the worst.
They're the ones that need the most help.
Yes. They are the ones. I mean, but I'm not disagreeing. I think what you're saying is right. I'm just saying, but those are the ones that are struggling.
I agree, but who's to say that so-and-so doesn't change the sheets after somebody comes and somebody got it and the next person has it?
Well,
Exactly right.
you're right back to the 14-day quarantine. How you gonna regulate it? How you gonna know?
Yeah, you can. That's my point, is you can. That's, especially on the ones that aren't regulated.
Could we go as far as to say if you have less than 20 units, open up 50%? I mean, because if you go just 50% and someone has got 4 units, that gives them 2.
That's hard to determine too, because a lot of these individual owners will have 1 unit. They may band together through a rental company or something like that.
Well,
And say, oh, we've got X number of units. We've got 300 units.
if they just got the 1 unit, then they need help.
Maybe.
I mean, you know, that way I don't know how you allow them, somebody that's got less than 10 units, how you help them
It's kind
as
of what
much
we,
as you do somebody that's got 40 units.
it's kind of what we said from the beginning of this. There's really not any good answers to any of this.
No.
I would be reluctant to carve off a segment of the short-term rental and say that they would have to remain closed while the others are partially open.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to do that.
So I think if we're gonna go with this ratio, then it should be applicable
It's all short-term.
to all short-term rentals. Because I think if we start saying, okay, this one doesn't apply, that we're getting into some really.
So if I'm hearing the board right, I guess what I'm hearing is that the campgrounds would come out as 100%. They could go ahead and rent all their spaces. And all the other short-term rentals would be like 50% initially. Is that?
So, and at that point, how do you differentiate? What if you've got somebody, there's plenty of people with one unit? What do you do then? I mean, there's a lot of people who own one unit, but they're renting on Airbnb in one house.
If they got twin beds, they can sleep in one of them.
I mean,
I see the validity of that.
I would say a solid 25, at least 25, maybe more % of the units are single owner, single property.
And
Well, I guess if it's a single property, then that, I mean, it depends on how the board looks at it, but if you just have one unit you're renting, or say one house that you were renting, then the likelihood of someone becoming affected from neighbors or the proximity that you would have in a hotel or something else, or a townhome or condominium, that type of unit, then that would be decreased. I mean, what the board may well say is that, it'd be 50% of occupancy. However, if the individual only has one unit, then that one unit could be rented.
I guess I'm just having trouble seeing the difference in 50% versus 100%. If you got people there, you got people there.
That's a board decision.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a public health expert by any means. I'm not seeing the. Is the juice worth the squeeze? To quote Robert, I'm not seeing the. I don't know that I completely understand the logic of 50%. I mean, because what's the biggest hotel we have? Banner Elk, Best Western.
Yeah. As far as short-term rentals, it'd probably be Blue Ridge Village.
Yeah, but they're not. That's not one building. How many properties does Blue Ridge Village have?
They've got 242 rental units.
So the difference in 115 or 122 families versus 240 families. I mean,
That's a significant difference. I mean,
but is it?
But it is, because you've got 400 more people coming out and going to the stores and if we're talking about trying to walk this balance again, we're trying to control the numbers, and numbers, that's what we've said this entire time about social distancing and numbers, and the fact that we can't have more than 10 people in this room. Numbers do matter. And if we can find a way to diminish those until we see kind of how this is playing out, and it provides us with I think a perception of reality of moving forward with caution and understanding.
I understand that point. I just don't know that I agree.
Yeah.
I was in Walmart the other day, and Walmart's wide open.
I agree.
It's wide open. There's no difference than a normal day in Walmart.
You go in,
There's no difference.
they say you go in, spruce pine, and they've got shelving full. And I don't understand that. And that's something else that we've got to consider is supply and demand. I mean, we're struggling now to keep our grocery stores supplied. We raise the demand, what's that going to do?
Well, they say in Banner Elk that the grocery stores are fine. Food Line and Lowe's, and you can go there and get,
For the most part,
yeah.
you can't get toilet paper anywhere. You can buy enriched uranium, means you can buy toilet paper.
Lowe's had a whole pallet, Lowe's Hardware had a whole pallet set in the floor there the other day when I went in.
Was one of your letters from a Donna Bruce say? Bruce C.
Donna?
Yeah. Well, she sent me something too, that's why I was looking.
And if
She's
the board,
Airbnb.
if the board will allow, let's get in the weeds on her. So she's got 8 campsites and 2 chalets that she rents. So we're gonna say she can rent half the chalets, rent 1, but rent all the campsites.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Because she's a mixed use.
this is weeds. I mean, you're gonna get in the weeds either way, and there's, no matter what is decided, there's gonna be a weird case pop up.
And let me understand this also, just for my concept here. This is all dependent on the governor lifting the stay at home order on May the 8th, correct?
Which I don't think you'll do.
Well,
And you're in phase 1, he is continuing the limit of gathering no more than 10 people. So if I have a home, Mr. Blake Vance's home that he has over here on the lake that sleeps 18, he's gonna have to limit, he can rent it, but he's gonna have to rent it to a party of less than 10 to correspond with the governor's orders.
Well,
Correct.
How's Mitchell County open theirs all back up with the same, they're the same state, believe it or not, that we are.
They just lifted,
They just lifted their local.
they rescinded all of their local ordinances and they will follow the governor.
If anybody thinks that anybody's following these ordinances, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, just go over to Dollar General in Pinola and look at the shelves from Land Harbor hitting it.
But you may be protecting yourself from a lawsuit.
Well, that's a part of it, but I think we have to have the voice of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of these things are, it's like resolutions and everything else that we do. A lot of times it has no actual teeth to it, you might say. But it's something that we're putting in. I think here we're saying, we are promoting this. We're trying to do what we can. We're trying to be reasonable in this. And it is much easier to give more than to take back. We know that for a fact.
All right, most of these short-term rentals, you've got the governor's stay at home order.
it ain't working.
Well, most of these people that will be coming here will not be coming from the state of North Carolina.
No, I was getting ready to leave. I went to Asheville today to the doctor and on the interstate. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
We were just curious. It was Oregon, Texas, Missouri, Idaho, California. I mean, they were cars on the interstate from every state this back in drive.
I feel like trying to do this halfway is trying to be halfway pregnant. That's what it seems like to me. It's like trying to be a little bit pregnant.
I'm like, well, it ain't, I don't believe it's North Carolina people. It's out of state.
Does that not make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like we're trying to be half pregnant. If we're trying to do something halfway, just do one or the other.
I think we're trying to be judicious.
I don't think you can do it though. I mean, there's an ideal out there, but that doesn't mean it's realistic. And I think that what we're looking at is not realistic. I think it's going to create more problems than it solves because everybody and their brother is going to be calling up here, calling these two saying, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? I feel like we're trying to be partially pregnant.
Well, if we lift all the ordinances and the governor keeps the stay home order, then people can't come anyway. Am I assuming that's correct, right?
Correct.
Well, North Carolina people are supposed to stay home, but
But that doesn't keep the people.
That's not gonna keep
Open the state up.
Tennessee.
Right. Exactly.
Tennessee, you're wherever.
Right. Okay.
And I mean, I don't know how much the board wants to consider all the news, but there are no reported cases in Aarc County when weighing how much you want to open up the county.
Right. Okay.
And we will highly recommend face covering in public and social distancing.
Yes.
I also talked with Carmen at the hospital because I wanted her and Diane both on board, and they've talked to each other, and so they're both in support of, doing this. Depending on the governor, we're going into phase one.
But I am in support of opening it up completely.
Right, yeah, right, 50%.
Well, the governor's already said May the 8th that he will go to phase one.
If the math is doing, the science is doing what he wanted to see, correct? All this track, I can't say that word.
But that's one thing about our mass testing, if they're fixing to start on here Thursday. You test 200 people in a week's time, none come back positive, 150 come back positive. Just because they're positive does not mean that you say, whoa. If you go to fit overflow in the hospital with it,
Might be a different story.
Right.
it's a different story. And that's where
our surge would come into effect.
that's where you say, whoa,
Yeah,
is when you go to,
the hospital system and the health department both said, having somebody at home that can get over this is fine. But surge in your hospital is where we gotta be cautious. And that's what will define the surge for them. But we can look at the numbers, and I printed this off today from the Department of Health and Human Services. Your nursing home and now your correctional facilities is where the majority of North Carolina's cases are, because they're in a confined area.
well, the thing about the correctional facilities is the Department of Correction is still shuffling inmates, just like they always have. They get buses at the prisons 3 miles every single day. From all over the state. They're in and out, they're great. So how do you determine what 50% is?
I've talked to some, let's take Blue Ridge Village. Is that the correct name now? Yes. Sorry, it changes names and I can't remember. But, you know, and I think they'll do a half no matter what, right? Because, you know, she liked that idea. Because she's concerned for her employees. And again, they don't want the stigma of being the people that bring the first case to Avery County. That's part of it. That's why I think I got the call from the resort today, said we're not gonna open until July 5th.
Well, I mean, the only possible thing, if you're gonna do it, you're just gonna have to bite the bullet and say 50% of all short-term rentals. No matter if they got.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what else you can do. That's the only fair way to do it, I'm assuming, because, right? I mean, and even campgrounds, I mean, 50%, because like you said, if you don't, you're gonna have this, why did you let the campgrounds open and not us? You know, I mean, it's all, and it's not a great answer, but I'm just thinking, if you stick to 50% totally for short-term rentals, then that question's answered.
Well, the difference to me is when you're camping, you have your own unit. And you stay in your own unit. But short-term rentals, you're renting from somebody else.
Well, I mean, somebody else will come in behind you.
You're in a spot.
And then when a
I'll be
camper
in
moves out,
short-term
it's wide
rentals.
open.
In short-term rentals, when you camping, if you bring your camper, then when you leave, you take it with you.
Yeah.
Or if it stays here all the time, you know.
I mean, I don't have a problem, I'm just saying, what's the solution to
We do 50%.
to stop this step, you know, get this settled?
Do we do 50%, let the owners do the math on pay for what they own?
Well, I guess.
We'll have to trust.
I mean,
And I think 90% of the people have done everything that the governor's asked, and I think 90% of the people have done what
Boy,
we
you're
asked.
generous.
That 10%, that's the 10%.
And I will have to say, I give Bannerell credit that they have really stayed behind us. And even the mayor road don't come to Bannery. They have really tried to keep them out.
For the most part, the entire county has truly worked together. I really believe that. Well, what do you got, Miss Michelle? My world. Any ideas?
Well, I guess, I mean, if the board wants me to draw up a proposal and see what everyone thinks on it, I can do that. It's based on what we've talked about today.
Sounds good to me.
And if any of you insiders know when the governor's going to tell us if he's going to lift the order on the 8th, let me know.
There's no Democrat there.
Can't find out. Lady I talked to said they ask him every day. You don't give them their results.
Okay.
You listened to him today, he didn't say anything, did he?
At the very beginning, it sounded real positive. Then I turned it off. Okay.
If you look around the country, this has been politicized. I'm just reporting. I'm not creating the news. This has been politicized, and the countries that are extending it all have Democratic governors. They're getting their talking points from the central office there, and that's what he's going to do. I'm telling you, he is making no decisions for himself. So he probably doesn't know what he's going to do Friday yet, because they haven't told him. Yes, I'm saying this in an open meeting. It can be part of the record. Everybody knows it. I'm just going to say it.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, I'm willing to poll them.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Okay, and
That's all, Michelle.
I mean, if that's what the board, I'll get something together, and I don't have anything else unless
Tell us what we,
has
tell us
any.
what we agreed to.
Well, I mean, I don't know that there's a straight agreement, because I'll draw a proposed extension of the existing state of emergency, and the board can consider that.
When will we
Yeah,
consider?
Kelly,
When will we consider?
when she gets it ready. Is that the right answer?
I mean, I should have something with
When do we meet again?
just let me look at my calendar here, and I mean, it doesn't require board approval as such, because under the emergency ordinance, Ms. Martha can sign it. So, if we're looking at the governor's order, executive order, potentially rolling into the phased reopening on May the 8th, then, as I understand it, the county would be interested in having, I guess that's the question, is the county interested in having their phased reopening coincide with the governor's first
I think we
phase,
should do what
or does
we're
it
gonna
just
do.
want to be reopened May the 8th regardless?
I think we should do what we're going to do and not care what the governor does.
Our state of emergency is to be redone Wednesday.
Well, it would, I mean, the question is, does the board want to lift the restrictions or change the restrictions effective May the 8th?
I think that's what we're saying.
It's fine, and with no regard to what the governor does.
Yeah, I'd like to do it over if we could.
Okay,
We can.
So Michelle,
We
I'm
can.
like Tim, I'd like to do it, resolution runs out Wednesday. Do it Wednesday.
We can do it since one sign.
I don't really, I'm saying.
Give everybody 2 days to get ready.
And then that will change on the 8th regardless.
well, it depends on when the governor's order
Well,
goes, yeah, depending on what the state does.
So what day are we talking about? Getting it ready, going ahead and doing it the 8th. regardless of what the governor does.
I think that's what I'm hearing from the board, that the board wants to go ahead and address the local restrictions regardless of what the state does.
For those things that we have control over, yes, yes.
Yes, I mean, that's what I understand the board
The
wants.
governor's really stressed on it. I shouldn't say.
I'm hearing some though say do it the 8th and some says do it earlier. So now what have we given to Michelle?
I think
Most
I
of-
have everything I need.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
I want to, just for the record, say I think 50% is trying to play both sides of the fence a little bit. I think either do it or don't, but I've been outvoted on that, but I just want to make my position clear for the record.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think sometimes, I think we need to, it's a fine line we're walking, trying to protect the citizens' health and exactly what you hear and exactly what's true. I would agree with you that sometimes I think 100% would be good to go ahead and open that, because I think that would help everybody. But in a way, in your mind, you think you're putting citizens at risk, and you may be, and I don't want to do that. But I do think in the long run of things that.
Well, I guess if I can ask Philip a question, since he spoke with Diane Creek. I mean, was it her recommendation that the initial lifting of the short-term rental restriction be at 50%?
My
Or did
conversation,
she have a recommendation?
my conversation with her was at first a third. And then I talked again about 50%. And she didn't fight me on either one of them.
Okay.
I didn't have a conversation about full force ahead.
Okay.
But
I did. I did.
you talked to her today?
I talked to her this morning early. And she thought 50% would be fine. She's not in favor of opening it completely up. And that is our public health director.
And the way that a lot of those restrictions are tied, it's tied to the recommendation of the local health district director. So, I mean, I think as long as the board has confirmation from her that she feels that 50% is appropriate, then that the board would be justified in relying on that.
And I'll say our hospital system is more nervous than she is, with the conversation I've had with him.
I feel like that's going to be hard to enforce. I understand the rationale, I guess, but I feel like it's going to be hard to enforce.
They just have to do the math themselves.
Yeah,
Just have to trust people to do it.
and we have to trust.
I mean,
So I guess just to nail down, I mean, if the board, if we get written confirmation from the health district director that she recommends 50% reduction of the restrictions, is that what the board would like to consider?
Yeah.
Other Commissioner Vance? Wants 100%.
Well, I won't with it anyway. I say let's do it or let's not. Let's not halfway do something, but that's a whole different discussion. But again, I'm one of 5.
And just to let y'all know, I've been talking with my fellow managers, and of course, Watauga and Ash and Allegheny and Wilkes, we all kind of wanted to do the same thing because we are part of the high country development and with our Chamber of Commerce. But we realized quickly Friday on the phone that we all are so different. You know, we don't have the 14 major hotel chains that Watauga has. And so Ash and I are kind of, you know, we're more alike than Watauga, you know, and Wilkes. And so, you know, they just said they hate for us to fight against each other and say, well, Watauga's doing this, why aren't you doing that? Or Avery's doing this, why isn't Ash doing that? But that's just going to have to be part of it right now, because McDowell, who touches our county, and Mitchell, that touches our county, has lifted all the restrictions. So just for the record, just to let everybody know. So it's gonna be an array, and then we've ordered Tennessee, who will let you go eat inside a restaurant. So,
Tennessee didn't have laws.
so,
All right, well, other than that, I didn't have anything else that I need to bring to the board's attention under my report unless someone has some questions on anything else.
Are we ready to go? All right. 3.5, staff reports and requests.
there's nothing in that category.
All right. 3.6, Michelle, do you have anything in closed session?
I do not.
All right. 3.7, approval of the minutes for February the 17th, 2020, special meeting, March the 2nd, 2020, regular meeting, March the 13th, 2020, special meeting. Do I hear that we approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Young, how do you vote?
Woodhull Young Junior, aye.
Blake Nance, aye.
Martha Hicks, aye.
Tim Phillips, aye.
Dennis Aldridge, aye.
And 3.8, our agenda consent items, we've had those to go over. Are there any questions about the consent items? If not, we approve by consent. We have our 3.9 informational items before us. Anybody make a comment about those? If not, 3.10, our upcoming meetings.
So on the 14th, we will be meeting for a budget workshop with fire commission, sheriff, and rules education. And that's at 5:00. May the 18th is our second meeting in May, but if the board wants to, we could replace that with a budget workshop because I don't see a lot of things to go on the agenda for that second meeting in May, and that's kind of normally what we do. I just need if that's what the board wants to do, we will need to decide on a time for that one. It will be the 18th.
That wrote it
Is
down.
that what you all would like to do?
So we might have to wait and see if Woody and Blake's working in that.
I'm wide open. I
So
talked to him today.
you want to do it during the day?
I don't care. Just
Okay,
tell me when.
is that?
Well, the only thing I've got that's the day of the High Country County Government's meeting, which we've been doing remotely, but that's at 7.
So if we do it early during the day, is it okay with everyone? Can we do it at 10 again like we did the other one? Is that good? Woody? Okay. Is that, you think that'll work for you then?
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll just go ahead and decide on the 18th. I'll send out a notice that we're canceling their regular meeting and we're gonna have a budget workshop and we'll start at 10 o'clock on the 18th. Does that work?
Sounds good.
As long as you remind me.
Let's see,
I'll be able to remind you.
Mr. Farrier, don't we need to announce that Thursday is the,
We can, our screening, we want to get our numbers up on how many people we've tested, so.
okay, now when's the thing in the Squire for prayer?
The National Day of Prayer,
It's the 7th.
it's this Thursday, it will be on the radio, or you can come and stay in your car. And they did want a representation from government to pray for government, so I think Mr. Aldridge,
I will not
Agreed.
be able to do that.
okay.
I think you make it,
Ms. Martha, thank you for reminding me, I forgot.
I think Josh Dobson may be willing to do that, I'm not sure.
Okay,
I talked to Philip a day or two ago about it.
okay. That would be great. I will follow up with Philip, but that is Thursday at 11:30. But you are asked to stay in your car if you come to the square, or you're asked to pray where you are at, and you can listen to it on the radio.
All right,
Hmm?
3.11, if nothing else, do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
How do you vote, Mr. Young?
Grant's aye.
Martha Gibbs, aye.
Tim Kelly's aye.
Dennis Aldridge, aye.
That was fun in the big yard.
So, I mean, are you afraid to look at my phone?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Kind of did.
and I had a conversation with
Just these- have Philip send it to me.
the-